All right.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everybody. How are y'all doing this lovely Monday?
This Memorial Day.
Yes, Memorial Day, which we will be in memorial for a great show that just got tactically nuked from orbit.
For many characters that fell in the line of duty.
Yeah, it got destroyed. You know, D&D.
Destruction and destruction.
Destruction and destruction. It's just
basically
absolute crazy.
Yep.
Tachi Gamer with the tier 1 sub for 8 months in a row. 1 month until it's a Twitch baby. I expect child support from both of you.
Oh boy. Thank you, Tachi.
Yes. And got Zico, thank you so much for the follow.
Yes.
Glad to have you here. Mm-hmm. Well, since the reactions go through an editor, you can bet they aren't reacted to the same day they are posted.
Y'all talking about Attack on Titan?
Attack on Titan.
Yeah, that's also a great memorial.
We're getting it back, and it'll be uploaded after the podcast's over. But I'm okay.
Yep.
Yeah, it was.
He wasn't a few hours ago.
Yeah, I wasn't a few hours ago. That's true. Yeah, I went from the Attack on Titan reaction to basically into a chill mode, then to Frisbee. That's why I'm all sunburnt, and then back here for the podcast.
Yep,
so,
exactly.
Yeah. Oh my God, y'all! But we're gonna be talking about some serious Game of Thrones, just all over the spectrum of things. We're also going to relate it in some ways to kind of some specific lessons that anime has taught us that Game of Thrones didn't really heed the lessons of in past stories. And it's something where we will kind of try to find a way in which not only they maybe attempted to go along those lines, but also where they just kind of straight up ignored things.
Right.
And maybe some things that these future Game of Thrones clones, copycats that will definitely come about will be able to take note of.
Such as maybe not getting ahead of the manga. Or if you do, don't be afraid to do an anime original ending. Just, make sure that you take the context of the entire series into account so that it makes sense.
Yeah. It's a novel concept, but Jacob, you can make a story however you want.
It's true.
It's true.
The legends are real.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. For real.
But it is very terrifying though to mess with something, especially as beloved as Game of Thrones, in the books were. So I understand why maybe D&D, in addition to just, being exhausted,
right,
didn't take some of the, liberties that they could have to make it make more sense if this is actually what Martin told them how it was supposed to end, to make it make more sense with how they've been doing the show up till now.
Right. There's probably going to be a huge story about the stuff that was going on behind the scenes for the last 2 seasons because they shifted strategy abruptly, not only with the production, but with the release of those seasons. So there's probably a lot going on also that is completely not related on the story front that forced probably certain story decisions to be made. So we can only guess at those, but we're going to tackle the stuff that we have a semblance of understanding about.
Right.
So before we do that, we got to give a VIP shout out to Rib. We're going and circling all the way back around to some of our oldest VIP supporters. Thank you so much, Rib, on the Discord.
You are amazing.
For your support. You are one of the 4 original VIP supporters that are still around to this day, which is absolutely crazy.
They're not just like a pork rib or something. They're a big beef rib with all the fat and juices and seasoning.
Oh yeah, straight from Texas.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
So thank you so much, Rib, for your support. Appreciate it, and it means a lot. So thank you so much for believing in us.
Yes.
Robert was right all along.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that I would say benefit from the people that have just finished Game of Thrones and are like, go back and watch some of the early seasons, because they're still really good.
And it's the perfect balm to just sort of wash away your worries and your salt of just how badly the later seasons went.
Yeah, just
they're amazing.
Yeah, get enraptured in the actual character dynamics and drama, because in and of itself, because a lot of things I would say in Game of Thrones carry through in a form of a story arc, like an anime. In some ways, because there was so many different storylines happening, concurrently, it was very much okay, here's the Ned Stark arc,
right,
and then here's the Dany arc Dany arc with the Dothraki,
right.
Then you have basically Jon Snow's becoming a man arc, and then you have kind of like segments where you can clearly see that they somewhat recycled the themes within the specific characters' arcs for the purpose of bringing out certain things.
HD Warrior 7788, Jaime pushing Bran out the window was foreshadowing of Jaime's character arc being thrown out the window.
Can we get some F's in chat for Jaime Lannister's character arc?
Like,
can we get some freaking F's in chat?
That was the worst character death of them all.
That was the most painful sacrifice. It was bad. Like, it was Like, it still hurts to think about.
Memorial Day.
Let's drink. I'm drinking water, but
we can pretend it's vodka, to try and wash away the absolutely terrible taste in our mouths that is just thinking about how that arc was handled. Yeah. The worst part was if they'd been standing a few feet over, they'd be fine. Yeah, well, no, that's called continuity, which of course we can't have in a final season, not episode, but season of a show that's been, in production for so long and has such a big budget, because, why do that? Yeah. Even if it's just from the very previous episode. Why have continuity?
Trash icon. Caleb drinking vodka out of, what is that even? American containers are so weird. It's actually a milk carton.
Yeah.
And I am so crazy that I need a gallon-sized milk carton, which for you that are... that'd be around 2.4 liters or something like that.
No, I think
2.2?
3.6.
No.
Because a liter is a little bit more than a quart.
Hold on. I
think you might be thinking of a kilometer.
Gallon to liters. Oh, you're right. 3.78 liters. So yeah, I drink around 4 liters of water a day. Like, just
past the Clorox. Oh,
yeah,
boy.
that's basically it.
Yeah.
But
the funny thing about Jaime's arc is that it went perfectly and it was over, and then he made a 180.
Yep.
Like that's literally Madoka Magica Rebellion stuff right there. Like it's like you had it all perfect with a nice bow.
Then you just had to.
You could have saved a cool million, from paying him for the final episode, and just had his character arc be resolved, and then maybe you wouldn't have had to get rid of Ghost in the stupid way that you did earlier. So yeah,
basically,
yeah. SOS Bros teach math.
Jacob is a big brain 5D chess math guy. It's actually funny because Jacob and I are pretty decent at chess, so that's
him way more so than me. I wasn't the best at it.
Yeah, I was in a club.
Yeah,
but
anyways,
but with specifically Game of Thrones' earlier stuff, this is something that I feel like needs to be addressed, because one of the things that's very common in the social media kind of general outrage kind of stuff when a show
hate on something,
when a show gets a really bad ending, is you go back and you apply that bad ending to the entire story,
right?
Which is completely unfair to what was done, story-wise, production-wise, and just results-wise for a good majority. I would say a good majority of Game of Thrones' show.
And the thing is that the fact that the first 4 seasons, like the first 50% of it, was so refined in just everything of how it was.
Yep.
I am really glad that we didn't get the bad quality, say distributed evenly across it.
Right.
Because this way we still have this wonderful, wonderful, absolutely exceptional show that just, ended early in season 4. And had a little bit of stuff in season 6, maybe.
Or in some ways, you could look at season 5, and you realize that they were in their in their territory of struggling how to figure out how to take a new a new kingdom that hadn't, well, not a new kingdom, a referenced kingdom that hadn't really been explored much yet, and they're like, hold on, the characters in the book that do all the Dorne stuff, we haven't introduced them, so they're book only, so we're gonna have to throw Jaime over to Dorne and Bronn. We'll figure this out,
because we can't just have a shift of perspective and introduce new characters all the way over.
And here's the thing, I think we should have trusted Dan and Dave a little bit actually more with doing their own basically anime original book, show original take on an arc, and basically go, okay, y'all, this is me trying to be at least 4-head, but I'm probably gonna end up saying something 3-head. So like basically Dorne, we should have basically said, let's have a Dorne ending. Like run with me on this.
Okay.
Was Dorne worse than season 8? Like, I don't think so. I think in some ways the worst thing about Dorne was the Sand Snakes.
Well, sure, because the thing is that Dorne was separated in a lot of ways from the rest of the show.
Yes.
And the characters and stuff.
And then in the books, I mean, in a lot of ways as well. They had their own internal political stuff going on here.
Right.
So I think that the place where you started to realize that they were nervous with their own writing, basically, was once they realized that they flubbed Dorne. And they're like, crap, so we're going to try and stick to things with the behind-the-scenes info we're getting from Martin, and then start to rush towards a conclusion because it's actually hitting us in the writer's fatigue area. This is my trying to percept, potential 5-head thing of what was going on in their heads. So then season 6 happens, and you notice right around the time that Hardhome hits that they're trying to push for this White Walker threat to basically just unify and grab everyone together as fast as possible. Season 6 happens, and they're basically like, crap, we need everyone to be at Winterfell, but currently there's an asshole sitting in Winterfell. Okay, right. Battle tactics be damned, they have to win that battle. Let's have everything just push, go, 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 go. We'll find some way to give some character wins to people that didn't really do enough to deserve them, and then kind of push Jon Snow as this, like, savior, and then once he's done that, quickly like shuffle him into Daenerys's arc so that she can kind of take center stage to be the Mad Queen, which is that we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about this podcast, but that's my understanding of what they were maybe trying to do.
Because like in I don't know, because it's very hard. It is very, very, very hard to get characters in a cast as big as Game of Thrones to all just be on the same storyline, right? Because the way it's written most of the time, it's a bunch of separate stories that kind of have some crossover, right?
Right.
So getting them to converge, that's difficult.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know. Like maybe it was just I feel like it was those little things that were supposed to be like rule of cool or like extra cherry on top moments that just completely broke immersion.
Yeah,
like the whole thing of like Ramsay being like, I'm going to let him go, and then I'm going to shoot at him and keep shooting at him. He could run in circles. They could have cavalry go get him. They could do literally anything.
That's like nitpicking.
Well, right, it's nitpicking kind of stuff, but it's like it's those little details that basically let you know that extra that final level of like edits and going over things to make sure it's all smooth isn't being done, which is a huge disappointment for something like this when so much is put into immersion.
Right. I think we started to notice it we only did reactions to season 7, but the time I started to notice it the most was in season 6. In season 5, what I felt like was them just kind of not figuring out how to do an arc of story well, but it wasn't immersion breaking in the writing sense, it was immersion breaking in the entertainment sense.
Sure.
And then if you remember back to season 5, Hardhome was one of the greatest episodes, in my opinion, of the show.
Hardhome was wonderful.
Just for that. And then, if I remember correctly, doesn't the Hound and Brienne fight at the end of season 5? And then we get the whole, for the watch thing at the end of season 5 as well.
Right, yes.
So that ending, the ending 3 episodes for season 5 were pretty good. They're pretty good. But the thing that the thing that was kind of the realization, I think, of writer's fatigue was once they started moving characters a little bit in the we need to condense the storyline stuff in season 6. Mm-hmm. Once that started to happen, it pulled me out of my immersion for the writing sense. Yeah. It was still fun, and I think Daiki mentioned that up earlier, saying how season 6 was entertaining, or no, season 7 was entertaining, but season 6 had some cool original ideas and stuff. Mm-hmm. That was, in some ways, an original thing with the whole stuff with John, and then how they had him basically go, my watch is ended, I'm out, and I'm going to go help everyone.
Yeah, that was good. Oh, Brienne versus the Hound was the end of season 4?
Oh, that was the end of season 4? Sure. Okay. Huh. Okay, maybe I'm mixing up. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. Hey, Hosted Radio, thank you so much for the host. Yes, appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Scurvy Balls Lemont, thank you so much for the follow. Glad to have you here. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But we really did have some great characters in Game of Thrones. Even if a bunch of them ended up getting butchered towards the end, at least they didn't touch Tywin. Tywin was great all the way to the end. You know, they didn't really touch the Hound at all. The Hound, his whole arc, they didn't try and force him in too much when he didn't need to be there, so that when they did bring him in, it's okay, we got Clegane Bowl, we got the conversations with Arya and stuff like that, and it was good.
Right. It felt like there were certain fan favorite characters, except for maybe some, where they basically took them and basically said, as because they're not really going to be the main plot drivers, they're kind of doing their own thing. They didn't really suffer from any bad writing. They just wanted to do their thing, and they got stuck with it. But then you have characters like Jon, Dany, Tyrion, Jaime. God, it was just painful. And in some ways, you look back and you realize Cersei had weird little moments here and there, but I would say overall she was handled decently well. She was handled decently well.
With Cersei, I feel like the big problem with Cersei in the later seasons was just that all the people surrounding her sucked.
Yeah.
So it's like a table leaning on one leg.
Disappointment, for sure.
It's just. Yeah.
Yes, Bran closed the effing book before the ink dried. Yeah. Yes. I think I made note of that. I made note of that. Yep. Yes. Arya. There were some weird decisions with Arya.
Yeah,
too.
I don't I feel like that was basically just hey, we'll do all this build up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wait, what build up? Yeah,
Yeah. It's okay. Okay. So talking about the earlier seasons, one of the things that is very apparent with Game of Thrones is subverting expectation stuff in the earlier seasons is that everyone in the story has their own motivation. But just because they say something, just because they say something a specific way, you look at their actions and their words, and if they don't line up, then the subverting expectations is resulting in things like the Red Wedding. It's resulting in things like Baelish actually being clever. It's resulting in things like, I would say, the Hound, just leaving at the end of season 2. Mm-hmm. There's these things where
the king's god.
Right.
Fuck the king.
Right. You look at where they did subverting of expectations well, and you notice that the thing that they did was they set up the subversion the minute they introduced these characters' real motivations.
Right.
When you have subversion of expectations handled towards the end of a show, we're going to talk about some anime that handled this, and in some ways they were mixed bags in the way they handled this. You have to understand that you can subvert the plot, or you can subvert in some ways by introducing a new perspective and try to make people second guess the character's motivations by being wait a minute.
Yeah.
They've been this. But in some ways you should have the subversion be the misdirection, not the actual direction for the character shifting.
Right, exactly. Have the misdirection be with the
Yep.
the plot, not with the characters. And even then, there are some cases though where you don't want to do that, like with the Night King.
Yep.
Because again, it's something where anytime you do a misdirect, right, a subversion, you need to think about how much time you spent building up to whatever is the expected outcome, even if it's not a specific outcome, but just like a general outcome, like the Long Night and the Night King wrecking everything, right?
Yeah.
By doing a subversion, you're basically saying, I'm banking on this moment, this, whoa, twist, to be enough to make up for all the buildup.
Yep.
Unless you can make it be something where as soon as the subversion happens, people are like, oh my god, that makes total sense. Of course it happened that way.
Right. So like Daiki is saying, subversion still needs solid foreshadowing. You have to misdirect it, though. Leaving out the foreshadowing for subversion makes it bad.
Yep.
Exactly. Y'all who watch lots of anime, you know those shows where the entire show is a subversion of expectations.
Right.
And it's a theme of the story, right?
Yeah.
But then you know those other shows where it's like, oh, that ending, that was a subversion of expectations. But actually, when you go and look through the show with at least the slightest bit of analysis, you know that they've been building up towards that specific ending for a long time. And we don't even have to mention some of the ones with the most legendary endings where it's like, oh, they were foreshadowing that in like the 5th episode, or
potentially even the first episode. I feel like the way, Game of Thrones, D&D needed a lesson from Tywin. In his, because I was going through the first season, and when Tywin's introduced, and he's skinning the stag, and he's talking to Jaime. And he basically says, you care too much what other people think of you. And he's like, I don't care what people think of me. He's like, as long as that's what they think of you. That's, I feel like, how subversions are treated a lot of the time.
Sure.
Is that they want they want it to be something where, surprise, right? But the thing is that you don't want to do a surprise where people don't want to be surprised. In the case of something like, say, in early parts of Game of Thrones, the idea of characters dying and stuff, that's what we lived for, right? It's like, we want that to happen. We want our expectations to be subverted, right? In that sense. And that's the point of it, right? In that sense, we're not actually getting our expectations subverted. We're getting our expectations met, because that's what the show has promised us, even if they surprised us with Ned at the beginning.
Right. No one has plot armor.
Exactly.
No one is above making stupid mistakes. Oh, wait. No. We brought a guy back to life. So on some level, we're but that was a specific. Oh, and there was Beric, but he's not really a main character, so he doesn't count.
And they could have had it go. They could have done certain things with that to have it play into the whole mystical aspect of the gods and the magic and everything. Because the magic that they did in Game of Thrones really was good, right? Yeah. It didn't ever go into that feeling of like D&D, like I cast a 3rd level spell or whatever, right? It had this mystical unknown aspect to it. But they ended up just going for the thing of not that people do stupid stuff, they die. It's that characters die. And then they end up basically killing off all the characters that are safe to kill off. And in a lot of ways, they just kill them off so that they don't have to worry about resolving their stories.
Yep.
Because who would do that?
Which is, it's not a cardinal sin in order to do that. It's just like, it's lazy.
It's lazy, and they had it oftentimes be the crux of what an entire episode was depending on when it's a 6th of the series finale season, when you're talking about a side character that really isn't that important, like Missandei. Missandei's great. I love her. I wanted her and Grey Worm to be happy. But her death doesn't mean shit. Like Tyrion should have died there. That would have been an ending to an episode.
Oh,
you know, like Tyrion is like, I'm going to do the stupid thing, but I'm going to be hopeful that I'm going to bank
kill them both
on my sister's humanity, that there's some amount of her left in there somewhere, and then she kills him.
And she just is just fire, and they all just arrows just.
If that had happened, we would have been pissed, because we would have been like, okay, Tyrion's smarter than that. Why did he do the stupid thing when he knew that would probably happen? But at least then
they would rip the Band-Aid off quickly, though.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, Daiki, yes, there was a delay. I've seen that deleted scene. The deleted scene with Tywin calling out Grand Maester Pycelle and playing his fool, playing the fool to make people underestimate him. Testament to Tywin being great in the show. Wish they kept that scene. In terms of, I would say, characters that portrayed their specific shtick of their character, just, I would say, almost flawlessly. It's not a real surprise that Charles Dance is a god among actors, but that character of Tywin was a force within the show. In same ways, Olenna Tyrell was as well. Whenever those two were together on scene, it was like Shakespearean, like playwright stuff, and we were just like, this is glorious. And we'd see like ourselves like wanting to like bump in on the conversation, and we get shooed out by Olenna, like her son who tried to be like, oh yes, I'm here, Tywin, and he's like, shut up, get out of here. And I was like, whoa, okay. Olenna is an improvement on the book character in my IMO. I could see what you're saying there. Yeah,
for everything that D&D don't, or for everything that D&D flubbed, the banter was not one of them. It was when the dialogue was talking about plot stuff that ended up being a problem, because the plot stuff didn't hold up to close inspection.
Right.
But when it was just characters interacting for the sake of characters interacting, it was really good stuff.
You can give an ending to a character without them dying. Tomato, this is a good comment. The Hound and Jaime could have just gone off to live happily and peacefully, I feel. Yep. There's some interesting things that I will have to say eventually about how I think Jaime's whole ending should have gone, and it doesn't even have to be specifically around the idea of him and Brienne, even though that's a good portion of it. It's the idea that he did basically what he set off to do. He proved himself to be the knight, the one that actually cares about the people. I died 1,000 deaths inside when he said, I'd never really cared about them.
Yeah, it's like
that was so contradictory to everything we had set up in season 3, in season 4. Oh my God. It was
like, it's like, let's just pretend that whole bath scene where he talks about, how the reason that he, killed the Mad King was because of how he was just burning everyone and he couldn't stand it.
God. So season 7, let's talk actually a little bit about season 7. I think season 7 is basically the Code Geass season 2 problem season.
Okay.
So one of the things that I really like to compare Game of Thrones to in a lot of ways is basically political drama, crazy, stuff kind of thing. It's basically Code Geass in a lot of ways. And in my opinion, there's arcs in the show that just mirror the way I think Code Geass season 2 flubbed it, is kind of in the same way what Game of Thrones had the problems with.
Right.
So in Code Geass season 1, it's a thriller, and they're running their way like straight towards like these very specific plot things, and it's
quite a ride,
mile a minute ride. It's crazy. Season 2 starts to do this thing where they basically like try to introduce new political characters and try to give them these weird mini arcs, which are not horrible. They're just okay. But then they basically like
they go from focusing on the drama of the action to focusing on basically plot devices that they introduce that are quite obviously bullshit. But
here's the thing. Here's the thing that separates Code Geass. Exactly. Code Geass landed the ending. So
very well.
Here's the thing that was important, I would say, with Code Geass season 2 is that there were characters. Let's be real here. There were characters that made some questionable motivation decisions in the midst of episode by episode stuff. You could look back on it and say, well, if you analyze it just so, there's ways Suzaku's character decisions and this thing didn't make sense. Let's just cut the crap and say that there were some questionable character things there, sacrificed for the sake of the plot. But
the thing that they ended up doing, was absolutely fantastic.
Was the Code Geass ending.
Right.
Now, we're not going to spoil that here.
Because that's one of the worst things to get spoiled on in fiction.
It's an amazing testament to how to end an anime, which, by the way, is an original. They're not adapting it, so, it's its own thing. There's no source material. More on that when we talk about the whole FMA potential thing with Game of Thrones. But the thing that they learned specifically was that what was built up for the main character's arc in the beginning of the show remained consistent in how they teased it and, in my opinion, subverted expectations by trying to make you think, wait, he's going bad. This is all going wrong. This is all just is getting worse.
Let's not talk about too much details, but the thing is they handle they handle the idea of basically turning the main character into an asshole very well.
Yep. Yep.
If only Game of Thrones could have also done that with Dany.
Yep.
Yeah.
But when you look back, of course, over the kind of the drawn out, story as a whole and character arcs primarily for the main character, it works. It works really well. It's not perfect. Let's be real here. Game of Thrones, if they wanted to do, I would say, a proper ending for Dany's character, one that is tragic, one that ends with, a bittersweet, really just not a happy ending and stuff. There are probably smarter people out there than us that could write really good endings that still fit, I would say, a lot of the pieces in the plot, so to speak, in the same place, but just fits way more with who she was developing to be and built to be over the course of that, I would say, that season 3 and onward kind of chunk there. Because there's this...
But really, they should have just been trying to Breaking Bad it.
That's
like,
another great show to bring up. Yep.
That is the textbook definition in my mind, even though I haven't actually finished it, of how to do the main character that goes bad, and you're rooting for them every step of the way, even if you're like, ooh, wow, you did that. Yeah, I would say the great thing about Breaking Bad is you're following the character dynamic of other people watching, reacting, feeling, and experiencing the descent of a guy going into madness. And while we are primarily going at things from an omniscient third-party perspective, so we're jumping around to all tons of different character, perspectives and stuff, we never really get inside the head of Walter at any point. So one of the things that I'm just throwing out there as an idea, and I'm sure there's smarter people that have already thought about this and maybe expressed it in a better way than this, but I think they should have doubled down on the Dany perspective story subversion thing, because I know what they were going for. Here's my thing. I'm not going to defend D&D for what happened, but I know what they were going for. What they were going for was saying, because of our limited perspective, which is not at all the case, it's what they were going for, not what actually happened. We had a third-person omniscient perspective here, and we had a lot of people who were going and being other perspectives coming in, being like, Dany, here's how you don't be your dad, blah, 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 blah. Right, exactly, and giving her every opportunity to not, and her, in a lot of ways, listening to them and being like, okay, yeah,
and then once the writing made them all stupid all of a sudden, suddenly it's like, oh, it makes sense. Yeah. What you can do here in a third-person omniscient, we have a perspective on everything, is whenever we shift to Dany, whenever we shift to her story, we need to see her good things that she's doing as she burns and destroys civilizations and wrecks things and makes basically the idealistic... This is what's right.
Exactly. Make her basically be like the paladin that goes dark in that sense, where she has such conviction about what she's doing that it's never a question of whether or not she's going to burn things.
Oh, totally.
It's about all the good things that she's going to do along the way that's going to make it all worth it, right? And really showing those things. Because all the things that we've seen Dany do that made us root for her, even while she was, burning things and people and whatnot, we were like, yes, that's awesome. And then what they could have done is they could have said, sweet, now here's the problem. Dany doesn't care about these characters that we've seen for so long in the way that we do, because they're strangers to her. In fact, they're enemies. They represent, all that she hates, right?
And they tried to do that.
Right. Yeah, and they tried to do that. But they butchered so many characters along the way, and they made it so that Dany then started to see the other side, which is kind of a problem too. Because if they wanted to have it be something where Jon ends up kind of joining alongside her, then they should have had it be something where it was very clear that he was not tempering her. Right? That she was still going on her warpath, and then it would just be a thing of it wouldn't make sense for Jon to join her.
In some ways, I would have liked a more power attraction between the two of them. Here's something that's really interesting about the love story between the two of them there. What basically it was we have pretty good sex appeal. We're just attractive people, and we just ended up talking to each other for a couple times.
We're the two main protagonists.
We ended up alone in a cave at some point, and we kind of blinked at each other a couple times. Here's something that they could have done here. John's a humble guy. I totally understand he's not a power tripper.
Yes, definitely.
But one of the things that John is absolutely, I would say, as a character attracted to, is that aggressive, like, belief.
Sure.
When you looked at Ygritte, and I rest in peace, one of the best characters, also someone that was never tarnished with bad writing. I loved Ygritte, and Jacob loved her like even twice as much as me. Like, because he was broken when she died.
Like, both in the show and the books, like, you know, no matter what medium it was in, it didn't make it any easier.
Right. Now, imagine, if you will, Dany coming in with this aggressive belief, basically being that might is right paladin that comes in and goes, I am going to break the wheel here. Yeah. You can either get behind me or you can get with me. And he's just looking down at his boner, just like popping up, just being like, I don't know what's happening to me, but she knows and he can have not a Jorah kind of, oh, she's a goddess, but it's like, he basically is like, she's alien. She comes in with this conviction. And me, as a good person, I see the injustice.
Right. He looks at the why of what she's doing and everything, of like, well, if might makes right and it's been used for such horrible things all this time, well, the might's on my side now. And now I'll basically undo all those problems.
Yeah, and not have it be a thing of where she deceives him or anything, but we spend some time with him struggling to balance, I would say, the stories he's heard about her, but also with a wise person like Tyrion telling him, like, this is going to go this way. And they tried to do this. Yeah. But they made it into more of a thing where they basically said, all right, John, once you fall in love with her, you're not allowed to be a character anymore.
Right.
I'm sorry. It's okay. You can be here and react to things and you can emote, but just my queen, I'm just going to be... And oh man. Because if you think about it from Dany's perspective, though, she was starting to clue in, not only in the power tripping kind of thing that John, that she's on, but basically in that John is someone special. I would have loved, now this is a weird one, but we dealt with the whole drama of we're family. Why didn't they ever deal with the drama of her just asking around and finding out he came back to life? Like, can you imagine? Can you imagine if she realized, oh my God, he was here sent by, like, R'hllor, by the gods. Exactly. Like, we are blessed. It's our God-given right that we are going to change this world. And he even buys into that even more.
Yeah, they could do something where basically that's where she basically latches onto him. Yep. And he doesn't fully necessarily see the implications because you know nothing, Jon Snow. Right. And then have stuff like what they did in the final episode, or the last couple episodes, be happening like along the way, and Jon's just sort of like, wait, hold on a second. And then that, because like if you think about, like, because they were, I get that they were trying to do the come full circle thing with him being like Ned in that sense, you know, but Ned very strongly was opposing things that Robert did that he didn't like, that he thought was, you know, wrong, or even just the tournament, you know, being like, why are we doing this, right? But they didn't do that. So
Oh, by the way, those of you talking about the whole Star Wars thing with Dan and Dave, they're not touching the Old Republic stuff. They have their own thing. Yeah. So, just make sure.
I swear to God, if D&D touch Revan.
No, they're not doing that. Someone else is writing that. Yeah. Fuad Mohamud, thank you so much for the follow. And Tenshi Hinanawi 1, thank you so much for the Twitch Prime for the 3 months. Appreciate it.
Yes.
Enjoy your 4th month you get a different magnet. That's right. Yeah. That's right. Okay, so all right. There's a lot I would say that we can talk about that was, I would say, good in the earlier stuff, and then kind of where we saw things start to devolve in the latter half here. I want to talk about in a little bit of stories that had this grand overarching, fantasy storyline with multiple characters and multiple locations, and how they did we need to convene everyone in a finale, convene everyone there, have them all do an awesome, basically set them up to finish their arcs, but also in some ways realize that we have a limited amount of time. We can't finish everyone's arc, okay? So maybe we have to kill off some people, or maybe we have to give them kind of teasers for potential future stuff, or just kind of go and have them basically walk off into the sunset. Things that don't, basically fulfill everyone's fanfiction dreams. I really think, like, you have to look at shows like Avatar: The Last Airbender. Like, I know it's been a meme on Twitter even. Like, people are like...
It's a meme for a reason.
It's a meme for a reason. Like, y'all, the thing about Game of Thrones, and you see this a little bit in Season 7, was they condensed the storyline into a linear journey. They basically said, okay, we gave the Night King a dragon... He's going this way. All right, now we're just going to go in a straight line towards the finale here, and it's basically just that. There are a lot of characters, just saying, a lot of characters that you note that on some level, I feel like they had maybe a production thing where it was, we have to give them 3 more episodes, like we have to involve them more so they get paid, basically, or stuff like that. An example of this, in my opinion, is Tormund and Beric. You remember how they were on the wall, and then the Night King comes and just torches everything, and somehow they're just okay?
Right. It's like...
There's a lot of things that I feel like that in the last 2 seasons, if they're going to basically just have Baelish just get, done dirty like that, in our opinion, just start mass slaughtering characters.
Right, exactly.
Really, in the... especially in episode 3 of season 8. Oh my god.
Yeah, because the thing is that the deaths in Game of Thrones used to feel callous.
Yeah.
Now they felt like they were being used as ammunition, and weak ammunition at that.
Very
like with this much buildup, if they are going to use them as ammunition, then just start machine gun spraying them. Like, Like the fact that Jorah was the big death of episode 3.
Yeah.
Like the fact that it's even an idea of it being a big death, like the big death of literally the thing that the armies of undead and the apocalypse have all been, coming towards and whatnot.
Someone that they plot convenience debated us out of him dying out of grayscale because he happened to bump into Sam, who happened to do all this stuff for him because he happened to... Like,
here's the other thing.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing. Jorah, I believe, is like the perfect tool for the purpose of the Mad Queen aspect. Because if you're wanting to make the Mad Queen transition, the fall from grace, juicy, who better than to have Jorah, who so utterly believes in Dany, right? If they were to have
die,
to have him. What if they had him die somehow in relation to that? Like maybe or
and she just feels nothing.
And she feels nothing, or rather, he starts to see her descending into the Mad Queen, right? Yeah. And then maybe, because if anyone could bring her back from the brink, it would be Jorah, right? And having that be there, and then maybe having that not be enough or something, then at least it would feel earned rather than just sort of coming in at the end because why not? And there's nothing really to stop her because we've used bad writing to eliminate all the other things that could have stopped her.
Right. There was a lot of characters, I think, that should have been dead in, early season 7 stuff. Yeah. In some ways, there's a bit of fan service, I think, that's good with having characters barely survive these dramatic moments. And it makes for good television in that you can basically get that tense, reaction. That's what us reactors love. Those moments where just everything is really intense and we're just like, let's go. You gotta survive. Yeah. But when you are using things like Jacob said, you're using the deaths more as episode ammunition for dramatic shock and awe kind of stuff. It becomes less about caring about the characters' arcs and more about caring just, what's going to happen next. Not necessarily with this character, but how or what. It's not even a question of why is a character doing something anymore. It's just that this character just happens to be doing this. Oh, okay. Well, now I'm just going to react to that. Oh, man.
Yeah. Oh, man. Okay. So, Respawn. Yeah. Dothraki. Just getting respawning
all of Dany's armies and stuff.
Yeah, it's
my God.
Oh, man.
That's okay. I think this is a nitpick, just to be fair. The Dothraki thing, I understand. They should have just all been dead and done with.
Right, because they did a dumb move, and we saw them all die. We lived.
we saw 10 come back.
Well, okay, sure, but
let's be real here, y'all.
like
there were like 100 or like 50 still running around, and it's like, cool, okay. But then they would showcase like sometimes they peel back and just have there be so many.
Yeah.
I really don't. I really don't want to be that kind of person, like going into that kind of nitpicky stuff, because with sets and stuff like that, yeah, it's just there's so many other things.
Because they mention the numbers, like
yes, that's true.
And the thing is that they could have avoided that if they just didn't show that stupid scene of Dany and Tyrion and, you know, all 80 Unsullied that were left, you know, trying to attack King's Landing when there were the ballistae and stuff. It's like, no. You could have just eliminated that, and then you could have theoretically had something where a bunch of them survived, because I guess, you know, Unsullied are badass, right?
Sure.
And okay, and I know that this might seem like a nitpick and stuff, but those damned ballistae. At what point is it a good idea to take dragons that you've been building up since the literal, like, very beginning of the show, pretty much, and then say, okay, dragons exist, we've watched them grow, we've watched all this stuff happen, and dragons, you know, conquer kingdoms, just one dragon would be enough, we have 3. Hey, we got this idea. We're going to build a crossbow that's, like, a bit bigger than normal, and we'll kill dragons with it. It's brilliant. It's like, you know, because just from a meta story perspective, never do that. Don't joke with that, because we know that would be absolutely silly to actually have happen, right? It's just disgusting, right? It demystifies the dragons, which are like the one of the biggest sources of just wonder in the show. And it's just like, okay, what was all the build up for?
Yep.
And then once we have that established, we're not going to be consistent with it. We're going to basically say, yeah, we know it was bullshit the entire time.
Yeah.
And we're going to have this point where it's like, yeah, Drogon should have been, like, shot out of the sky shotgun style, like, in 10 seconds, you know, given what was happening. Because, what, are we supposed to believe that Euron fired all those bolts that went into Rhaegal? Like, what, that he just had this repeater-loaded, like, ballistae?
Yeah, everyone rolled metaphysical D20s over D20s over D20s. Like,
right, like, surprise attack, auto crit, you know, and all the other stuff aside of, you know, that Dany should have seen them, and the idea of a fleet just sneaking up on someone who's flying and then being able to shoot them out. Yeah. But...
don't worry, the ballistas got nerfed in patch 8.5. Oh my god. All right, so there's a lot of problems, I would say, with the decisions by which they moved the plot along towards a conclusion. What we got in a conclusion of Game of Thrones was one that it just kind of made me go, oh. You know? Like, you think about where the show started. Bran being the first character to be even given a perspective chapter in the books.
It makes sense that, like, he would end up being the one to sit upon a throne because he's used to being in a chair, you know.
There's these little things where you can kind of tell that this was an ending that they wanted to have. A bittersweet ending for Jon going back to the north. I like that.
Yeah.
Jon having to kill Dany. I like that.
Yeah.
Jon basically, like, foregoing the Iron Throne and abandoning his birthright. I think that's fine. I think that's actually something great. I have 1,000 problems with how we got here. And chat, this is something that I really encourage for those of you that are not yet book fans. Give the books a chance, and if you can't stomach the idea of reading 5,000 pages of Game of Thrones, check the audiobooks out. They're really good. Yep. They're really good. Like, this is something else with that. Yeah. If you do that with Jon, though, please make a subplot at least match.
Yep.
For sure.
Absolutely.
For sure. But if you look at where they were wanting to put the dots, basically, I think of everything like a board game. So you look at the Westeros map, basically, and you have the Unsullied going back to Essos. It's like, that's depressing. They have no ability to reproduce, and people are like, you could have your own house. It's like, well, you'd like our own house. Yeah. What are you talking about?
They just adopt.
Yeah. I mean, yes, that would be wonderful. That would be wonderful. But
they
like, there's
a lot.
There's all these little things where I see, based on, you look at the beginning and you look at the very end. You don't think about the stuff in the middle, and you kind of go, oh, they were going to North. That's right. That's right.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you. That's Missandei's home country.
I just so didn't care that, it's easy to forget.
But if you look at where they were putting things at the end, specifically the idea of Arya leaving Westeros, it's something that felt silly and random in the moment of the finale. But you think about Arya basically just being screw all to society, regardless of where she went. Basically, what's west of Westeros? Who cares? But the idea of like fans ever since like the beginning of the books talking about how Arya is going to, because in the books Arya can warg, she's going to warg into Nymeria and basically just
right, exactly.
I'm not a lady, There's
exactly. Well, and especially since Sansa's wolf was called Lady.
Yep.
Yeah,
but you can see that they were wanting to hit things in a specific way, to the point where I actually look at the ending and I see all the fan servicey kind of silliness, and I see also maybe the pieces being in places that are like, oh, those are good places for those pieces. The way they got there just is garbage.
And even then, if you look at the end points for the pieces, because the thing is that just because you could imagine in a vacuum,
right,
a certain thing happening being cool, that does not mean it should happen in the context of the story, because sometimes there's no way to have the story get there in a satisfying way, especially once you introduce multiple points into the mix. Miyazaki once said that every time you add something to a story, you are inherently taking away from the story, because you're basically deciding that you're going to be doing one thing over another thing, right? So when you make decisions, you have to realize that there are consequences for those decisions, and you can't have it be everything, right? Because then it's just a chaotic mess. Like having Bran be the one on the Iron Throne, cool. Yeah, there's a lot of ways in which that makes sense. The fact that they just sort of said, "Hey, Bran will be on the Iron Throne," maybe that could have been done better. Things like Jon killing Dany, right? Sure, that works. But then there's certain things that you have to work around that.
Right.
And they didn't do it. Yeah.
Don't worry, Demon Crux. Those will happen. Don't worry. Yeah. Bran the Broken is such a funny title. Let Bran choose his own name, damn it. Yeah, this is definitely a thing that George R. R. Martin planned all along. Yeah, actually, it's really funny. If you think about the idea of Bran potentially Keikaku Dorying everything here, he is an evil person. The fact that he has no morals basically surrounding all this death and destruction that happened because he just wanted to play with ravens, like,
yeah, I mean,
he did basically by not involving himself in any way, which is probably maybe a defect of just his powers being something where he's so disconnected that he can't do too much to mess around with. But there are some very smart people, some very smart channels out there that have shown some really cool ways in which they could have rewritten Bran to die in season 8, and something that would have led to some really cool, like, that's why Bran's purpose in the overarching kind of magical narrative that was going on, kind of the gods thing there. Yes, Hello Future Me. I love Hello Future Me. I've been following him for a long time with all his Avatar: The Last Airbender stuff. He's a fellow fan of really good shows out there. But
Bran was watching Endgame during the battle in Winterfell. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, I love the rewrite of Bran having accidentally warged into the Night King before his creation in
Thank you! Yes! That was what, like, me and a bunch of other people were trying to predict back in season 6. We were like, yo, Bran is the Night King. It's not that he's the Night King currently, but he will be the Night King based on him going into the past to discover a way to stop the White Walkers. And basically, that video was a really well written out explanation of how they could have done it within the episode and actually had it work and have there be that closed loop and time shenanigans. It would have ended basically
oh wow,
the realm of magic over the course of the.
He would have even ended up getting killed by the dagger sent to kill him at the beginning.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's so many cool foreshadowing things that would have worked out there. And but the Night King, he's just...
And the thing is that the fact that Bran decided to do that isn't necessarily a problem, because Bran had been set up to, for that to be... It to kind of make sense that he would potentially sacrifice things like that. But then the problem is, what about the reactions, the responses to those kinds of things? Like, you can't just have him say that and not have any consequences.
Yeah.
So they could have gone the route of basically having Bran not tell anyone and it be something that we learn through, like, third person kind of a thing.
Sure.
Or I don't know. Yeah, it's
yeah. It's kind of crazy.
D&D. F it. We're done. We want to move on to Star Wars.
I think that's honestly what it was.
That's understandable.
I think I totally understand the writer's fatigue and handling the massive project that is Game of Thrones in addition to the writing. Like, think about this. Like, there was a lot of hell that went through things on the production angle with those final few battles. Not necessarily in season 8, but also in, like, previous seasons and stuff, where they needed that extra time just to make all the production stuff work. At least I believe so. But it was also that, like I was feeling the fatigue with the whole Winterfell arc hard.
Oh yeah.
Like there was just no investment put into it. And people are a subversion of expectations.
No.
I point to greater shows that did subversion of expectations very well. You can look at Hunter x Hunter and how they basically set the tone for subverting expectations with regards to not just the plot, but the narrative being something that's tied directly to character motivations, which is something they were saying, hey, look, we can do this shenanigans by having this limited perspective thing happen where Sansa is actually Keikaku during 5-head, 200 IQ thing there. And then we have to drag through this just awful melodrama.
Because here's the thing: if you subvert expectations, right, even if it's not necessarily character focused, right? If you maybe stretch things a little bit, it should make things more exciting.
Yep.
And the subverting of expectations that they did here cut things off early, right? With the Night King, it's like, oh, he's dead now. Everything's over. There's no more excitement to be had from that, even though we were expecting a lot more. In the case of the Winterfell arc in season 7, right? We subvert expectations so that we can have multiple episodes of melodrama when, like, we should be, like, wrapping up character arcs and having stuff like that.
Yeah, you can tell that they were not on the same page with their problem, which was, we need to finish this show and we don't know how.
Right.
So instead of moving things stupid fast, which is actually something that I didn't have as much of a problem with, you remember when they were teleporting around?
Oh,
Like, here's something that I really think Game of Thrones should have done a little bit. Utilize time skips. Y'all, like, there were some very clever moments, I would say, in earlier seasons where they used time skips specifically just to be like, a battle just happened. Like, do you remember when Robb suddenly had Jaime Lannister prisoner? Yeah. And we're like, Robb just sacrificed 2,000 men to capture one. Now, obviously, they couldn't show the battle because they had a lower budget back then. But the actual genius of basically saying, subversion of expectations, we're going to have this battle that we were hyping up here basically just be happened with an off-screen character decision, which I think wasn't one of the better moments in the show, but it's a way by which you accelerate the plot for the purpose of having better character interactive moments. And
have you seen the map showing Jon's travel versus the Night King? No, but I would love to see that. That sounds awesome.
That sounds painful. Now, yes, that travel from to and from King's Landing was something that I was actually kind of fine with. But look back at things like season 7. Season 7, they used it to jump around with the thing is people getting Dany to bring her dragons over.
You shouldn't have it be something where the characters in universe are aware of the time skips, and the fast travel and stuff. Having it happen for the purpose of like a narrative, thing happening because it's a TV show and we have limited time, even though there were all those extra seasons and extra episodes that were offered and rejected. Whatever. But having them like say, "Hey, you go run back to a castle so that we can send a raven to the other side of the world so that someone else can fly back over before the night's over and save us.
Yeah, it was something where it just got into silliness. But yes, Daiki, that subversion was also foreshadowed by letting the spy go with false info. I loved that part by him basically being like, yeah, come on in here. Yeah.
Yep.
And then they're like,
wonderful.
Rob, you're letting him go? And then it's just like, oh, you think I'm letting him go, as some mistake?
Absolutely wonderful.
Tom's son 87, thank you so much for the follow. Glad to have you here.
Yeah.
There were moments where they brought in, and this is actually something that I actually liked about Game of Thrones early on. If you notice, there were these throwaway tertiary characters that we knew were going to die, or that we knew that weren't valuable, that were sent in to build up the intelligence, the effectiveness, or just the overall effectiveness. I think I said that twice, but competence of bigger characters. But in this, they basically ran out of those types of characters, so they're like, oops, crap.
We'll take these characters that are competent and make them dumb to show how smart the other characters are.
Right.
I'm not even sure anymore.
Yeah, I think that what might be something that was a little bit of a problem, though, was just that fans on some level, they were worried about, I would say, a little bit too much backlash by killing certain characters early.
Right.
Because there's certain characters I feel like people were just hoping to have at the end of the show.
Yeah, but
most of them, I would say, based on the way they were writing things, even when it was not horrible, but they were having problems, they should have been just axed off. And that's something that's rough. You get basically Varys instances. Varys, Baelish was like, Varys and Baelish were both just
Baelish. The thing is that okay, with Baelish, they could have had it end in a way that that made sense while it's still having his character end without him being stupid, right? They could have literally had Bran show up and just be like, chaos is a ladder, and
Baelish runs just away,
just freaks out,
leaves the castle,
or tries to leave,
tries to solidify his hold on the Eyrie.
And it would be great.
Sansa basically just sends a message to the Eyrie, and they all just turn on Baelish.
No, you know what I would have liked even more?
What's that?
Baelish turns to run away, and he's running away, and then suddenly his eyes cloud over.
Oh,
and then he walks back in, and then suddenly the next thing he realizes, he's in a court. Right in front of everybody, and he's about to be executed.
Oh my god, that would have saved so much time. I love that idea.
And then it's basically him just being like, what are you talking about? I'm the mastermind. I did everything right. And then it's like, nope. Sorry. You encountered
a demigod.
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
You're done.
That would have been one of the coolest moments for Bran, but they had the whole Bran doesn't care because I'm not really Bran.
Right, which is like
Bran literally is sitting there like, Baelish is just kind of an asshole. I just looked at everything and, I guess I just don't care, But,
Tywin's horse shitting on the floor of the throne room was the foreshadowing of season 8.
Wow. Oh, man. 8 seasons is a lot to watch, and I'm not really a fan of stuff I can't consume at my own pace. I only watch a few choice anime and prefer reading. Is Game of Thrones worth the effort, especially considering the controversy by the ending? Yeah,
just watch the first 4 seasons.
If you like the first 3 or 4 seasons,
then that's enough.
Then well, no, I would say it's still worth it to finish it in some ways.
Sure.
Because here's the thing. And by the way, thank you for the follow, Xeno the Wise and Matt's book. Glad to have you here. There's kind of this thing that I had a little bit of a journey with regards to Lost. For those of you that watched Lost, live, or at least watched any of it live, y'all remember when season 6 happened and we all realized, this isn't going to end well. Like once it basically started, like the first 2 or 3 episodes, we were like, yikes, like this is not.
And like we had a feeling before then that it wasn't going to, just because of the kind of show it was.
The writer's strike in season 4 also tanked it and stuff. But I remember how all the characters, for the most part, actually had decent conclusions to their arcs. Not all of them, but for the most part, they did. And now, here's something that's kind of crazy to think about. I think Lost, actually's main problem was setting expectations to be this thing that it just wasn't.
Right.
And then when they tried to be like, hey, we gave you answers and stuff like that, it just kind of...
Well, right. And because with Lost, we didn't want answers. So they shouldn't have given us one.
Right, exactly. But the thing is that instead of going with the prescribed ending of George R. R. Martin's basically thing of like, this is where things should end, I think on some level Dan and Dave should have come to, and maybe they did, like, this is something that's weird, y'all. I'm not trying to start a conspiracy or anything, but like there's a very real possibility that they came to HBO, Martin and all them, and were basically like, hey, y'all, we're tired. This show is just draining the life out of us. We're having a lot of trouble figuring out a way to how to end this. Martin's ending that we've been looking at the whole time is one that would take like 12 seasons.
Right.
And we just need to finish this. Can we get a structure by which we can end this a lot earlier? And they're like, okay. I think at that point they should have said, we're going to do our own ending. We're going to do our own ending. We're going to kill off a lot of the characters. We're going to, I'm going to FMA this. Like, y'all, remember when they caught up to a lot of things in season 4, actually, when they started pushing past the books in certain areas. And we were like, I don't know about that. No Stoneheart. Like, you know, all these little decisions. And we're like, it's no big deal. It's no big deal. They've done, you know, they've done show original stuff rather well. We saw the Arya Tywin scenes. We've seen how they handled dialogue at these specific bits here. We've seen how they've kind of let the actors kind of take the characters in this kind of like just special direction and stuff. I really liked that aspect. I mean, you think about the whole stuff with Shay and Tyrion, that's completely like that's way different.
Shay was hardly a character in the books.
Yeah, Bronn was like barely a character. Like there's all these things that they added in to, because I would say the fans were, you know, really invested in these characters. But at around that point, I think they might have started to realize it, but they didn't necessarily do anything about it, is they needed to FMA this. Like, let's talk about the schism of the great anime that decided, hey, we're going to be bold, or we're going to do our own ending.
Also, before we get into that, someone said that Jon Snow being Aegon Targaryen meant absolutely nothing. It did actually give us quite a bit. It gave us one thing in particular. It gave us melodrama. Isn't that wonderful?
Yep, such melodrama. It's an easy way to just
write
Starbucks characters staring at each other and saying things passive aggressively. Which, to be fair, that was a lot of the show coming up to this, but it was not melodrama.
Right, exactly. There's nothing mellow about that drama.
Nope.
But yeah, FMA, like they should have just done the anime original ending and just, you know, basically been like, okay, cool, we're gonna do our own thing, and that way, at the very least, it's internally consistent, you know. So even if it's something,
be a bad ending, it's okay.
Yeah, but like, because that way we could have gotten character resolutions that make sense, right? We could have had Jaime have literally anything else.
And this is what I wanted to bring up here, is that we came into this show and got excited and invested in this show not because of dragons, right? Like, y'all here,
dragons weren't even there at the beginning.
Yeah, like, well, not even like the sex, the crazy action. It was the characters. Let's be real here. The reason why we watched a lot of this big, bombastic, crazy fantasy story with medieval stuff and weird magic and all this, it has all the things that should basically make it a not mainstream, you know, not accessible, not interesting story. But the characters were good. The characters were really, really, really good.
It was a story about families, like, you know, for the large majority of it. Certainly in the first season.
Yeah, definitely. And that continues. And I would say the themes of family in some ways die out after about the time that the Lannisters and the Starks are about gone from the series, which is interesting because that's about the point when they divulge from the books the most, and they also just forgot how to write good stuff.
To quote Tywin again from his introductory scene, at the end of the day, all you have is family. That's all that matters, right? And that's, you know, they just decided to forget about that.
Jojo the Best 4, thank you so much for the follow. Glad to have you here.
And did we ever find out if Cersei was ever really pregnant? Yeah.
Chekhov's baby.
You know, who knows? Who knows?
Conleth Hill throwing his script onto the table as they read out the part where Varys died really tells you all you need to know. Oh my god.
I need to see that.
That hurts. Oh. Wow. Best we can hope for is some animated adaptation from season 5 onwards. That's not happening. I would love an animated Game of Thrones like reboot, like 20 years in the future. They could do it.
Sure.
Like I could see Game of Thrones once the books are finished in 20 years, because that's about how long it's gonna take, or Martin's gonna just,
Or what we could do is we could have it be an animated series, have all the actors reprise their roles but doing voice acting.
No.
We don't have to worry about budgeting CGI for Ghost, we just there you go.
Yeah. See, this is, I would say, what's interesting here, because Zeno, I understand what you're saying, but like, you can have a large overarching story with character focused narratives, and I would say Hunter x Hunter is actually one of the great examples of that, because it also adds in the subverting expectations thing.
Sure.
And because it's an arc based format, you're allowed to have these endings throughout it, and overall have the narrative just kind of be carried by the characters just having their motivations just go their way throughout the world itself. But here we are. We're at the end. There's a lot of stories that I feel like we could go a little bit more into. One that we didn't really mention in terms of the anime that I would say did the whole subverting expectations thing, but it was heavily foreshadowed, is the Berserk anime.
Yeah.
Berserk 1997 anime.
Like The Eclipse.
That's a gigantic subversion of expectations.
But at the same time, it's what you like.
Once it happens,
coming. You're like, oh yeah, and yeah, exactly. And they made it. Even in the anime, they made it sure that we absolutely knew it was coming. We just didn't know exactly what it was or what it would look like. And again, even when the magic elements come into the story, since it's also another like dark, very low fantasy kind of story, they keep it focused on the characters, and that's really what's most important. Like, can you imagine how much it would suck if they were in Berserk and they just focused on like the magic and whatnot, like to the detriment of the characters? And it's like, ooh, magic, that should carry everything, right? No, it'd be awful.
Yeah. Emilia Clarke was so confused after reading the script; she was crying so hard the entire time. I heard that she basically called her family,
like her mom,
and stuff. It was like, do you guys think Daenerys is a good person? Like, could Daenerys do anything that would make you hate her? And it was basically her questioning in some ways, because she drew a lot of strength from Dany as a character.
Sure.
And to see Dany basically just get basically eviscerated in the ending was like, I need a reality check. Can you guys please like hold on to me? Like this is actually,
she invested her entire 20s into this role.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I know so many people gave her crap for her acting and stuff over the course of Game of Thrones as a show. Like of all the actors and actresses that I respect the positivity and the energy that they basically brought to like conventions and fan interactions and stuff like that, Emilia was one of the best. Like, I loved that she was like, I just felt like there was a really cool thing that happened because of the show for her. And yet if you looked at kind of the legendary talent surrounding her and stuff, like the just, people even like, like Cersei's actress, like she was amazing. She was so good.
Yeah, Lena Headey.
And Emilia's here like, I have one of the most important protagonist roles, and I don't feel at all like capable, of doing this and stuff. So to have her, have her, have her character like that butchered, it just, Yep, her season 8 acting was on point, even if the script was not. Yes,
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, and the something else that Dyke said was, the subversions should make you go, what? Oh, what? Duh.
Right. Yeah. Yes, for sure. She acted the hell out of the last couple of episodes, even though her character was butchered. Gotta give her credit.
Yep. Yeah, Peter Dinklage calling the crypt scene out in an interview was enough. Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's like yes, I'm a smart person, so naturally when we're fighting the person who can bring back the dead as his undead army, I send people to the crypts where all the dead are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you think everything after season 6 was rushed, strange writing, or bad. I especially liked the Battle of the Bastards because it centered itself around a major house fighting with a lesser house, the Boltons. Towards the end of season 6, they solidified what Cersei will do for her children. Yep, I think that's a good overall consensus to have. And they did have a little bit of the, Varys teleporting stuff in order to, kind of have it. Okay, Dany's coming. She's on her way. But it was something where I really feel like even earlier, because Dan and Dave talked about this early on. They're like, George has told us the rough outline of how this is going to end, and we're going to stick with that. And I think it was optimistic to think that they could do that, but I applaud them for trying. But around that point where they realize that they're having trouble figuring out a way to run the arcs of these characters with no book knowledge to fall back on, I think they should have realized, okay, we're going to try and do an ending that makes sense, and we'll just run the story until HBO decides we're going to have the last season. Because production is production. You have to end it whenever HBO is like, okay, you're done.
Well, except in this case, they decided to end it, like 3 seasons before, but,
Yeah, it was something where it felt like there was a plan maybe for 10 seasons, and Dan and Dave were like, we're tired. We need to end this. So
which again is understandable. But
hey, if they had that thing there, I would rather have it end here than have 2 more seasons of them dragging out bad character writing.
Yep.
Let's be real. We could not
that would have sucked so bad.
Let me say it in a positive way. It could have gotten worse. That's a positive way to look at it.
Which is kind of hard to imagine.
Yes.
But yeah, it could have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones ratings fell harder than Tommen. Oof.
To be fair, to Tyrion's defense, how could he have known that the undead with their rotted bones and crumbling bones are capable of breaking stone coffins? Yeah.
I mean, that stone was old, though, so it's pretty brittle.
But stone lasts better than people usually. But yeah,
if they have no pain receptors or anything like that.
Well, right, but still, just hardness factor.
I'm totally. Yeah, there is also a dumb thing with regards to corpses that are, petrified or
decomposed,
decomposed stuff. Why do they suddenly get super tensile? They get super strong, basically.
Right. Yeah.
Why don't they just crumble when they hit something? Because
it's like at that point you could just say, okay, it's magic.
It's magic. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, you have a little rating thing, Suleron. Season 4, then 1, then 2, then 3, then 6, then 5, then 7, then 8. Interesting. So you put 3 below 2. I don't know what my rating is, but I know in my mind 3 is. I like 3 more than 2.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what my rating is. I think my favorite season though is 4. So mine is probably 4, 3, 1, 2, and then I don't know what the rest of them
if you could only change one thing in season 8, what would it be?
Bran's death with the Night King thing. I
was
campaigning hard for the Night King is Bran theory, and I just wanted his character to mean something in the conflict overall, because we went through 8 seasons of him building up this whole thing, and they skipped him, I think, 1 season because of him aging a lot, and they were like, oh, we have to kind of time skip to make it him being older. It just kind of makes sense. But it was I fell in love with the mystical elements of Game of Thrones. I even liked a lot the whole Stannis burning people alive thing. It's the whole commentary on the Crusade stuff and just religious theocracy, kind of stuff like that. But just the otherness of the magic, the children of the forest, the idea of the old gods.
Wondrous.
Yeah, this is the idea of the old gods potentially being somewhat connected to the way things worked here. It's just,
if I would have changed one thing, I would have just made it so that the Night King was the entire antagonistic force, main threat of the final season. Because
have him win at Winterfell.
Have him totally win at Winterfell. They go to King's Landing, and then it's a thing of
let us in. We can help you.
And the thing is that then because I feel like that would be like the ultimate like Lannister Thanksgiving, right?
Sure.
Where you basically have all these characters that are together, and Cersei hates them all. She wants to kill them all. She could kill them all.
Yay, this is awesome.
Yeah, right, exactly. She's like, my enemies are served up to me on a silver platter. But she's like, okay, I can kill them any time, so I'll just bring them in, right, and keep them close so that I can kill them. And then
they have dragons at this point, Jacob.
Well, okay, sure, but still, like the characters, since the dragons, I guess they could just fly off, but then it'd only be like what Dany and Jon, going somewhere.
Well, that's where you could have killed off one of the dragons. Actually, that's a really good point. Is you have the Night King actually be competent and kill one of the dragons.
He kills one of the dragons. Yeah, exactly. And
we saw he was so terrifying against one in season 7. Follow up with that.
Yeah. So you have all that stuff happen, and the White Walkers, do all their thing, but then they get there, and then it's this thing of, okay, now we kind of have to work together, and you still have this intrigue thing of them thinking like, okay, Cersei's going to kill us at some point. We just hope that she has enough common sense to wait until after the Night King's dealt with, and then that way it can be done like in parallel or something. But
yep, Dikey, I'm serious. Yeah, that's a great point. They set up Winterfell being lost with Yara capturing the Iron Islands, which is a place they could have ran to hide from. And actually, that's a great point. They lose Winterfell. The Night King basically just tears apart everyone's armies. Now we just have named characters riding on horses and dragons and stuff. And we basically go to the Iron Islands. Dead can't get there. They're safe for now. And
that would be a poetic ending for Cersei.
Well, the thing is, they realize that they have to save Cersei. Cersei is the only one with an army. They have the Golden Company there. So they basically send a raven. The dead just take over the north. They take over everything. They slowly start moving away. We time skip a little bit after the raven sent back. And basically they're like, Cersei's just like, screw you or whatever. Then they're like, okay, we're going to do it without her, basically saying it. And then they come in as heroes. Dany with her dragon breaking the wheel in simultaneous breaking the cycle of the seasons with the Night King, but also breaking the establishment of King's Landing, and then she can burn it all. She can burn it all.
It actually makes sense because it's like, hey, it's all been taken over. Everyone there is basically, because then you could make the argument that she's basically like, everyone in there is just soldiers for the Night King, right? So we do have to burn it all, and then people are like, but they might not be yet, and then you can have that conflict there, right? And then, crap, I forgot what I was going to say. But, yeah.
Yeah, well, any kind of White Walker people got turned into stuff, potential drama, just kind of horror, I would say.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't use that at all.
Right, exactly. Why not have the named characters die and then get brought back up? It's like, oh, man, that would suck. And also, the whole thing of, like, with that theory of them going to the Iron Islands, that could have been so awesome, is that it's like, oh wait, but the Night King has a dragon.
Well, no, but he has no interest in necessarily just dealing with them. He's busy raising the second one.
Yeah. Sure, right, exactly. But then there could be this idea of the Night King won't necessarily stay in Westeros.
Sure.
He could go across the sea,
sure.
And then suddenly it's like,
we can't just hide in the Iron Islands. We have to actually
go kill the Night King, and then it can become this thing of, all right, we have to do like some kind of like last battle kind of thing of like draw the forces away, so and then maybe if you had Arya kill the Night King, then it could sort of make sense, right? But
sure, yeah, do a Dark Knight ending, Dany going crazy, but people covering for her to keep her legacy intact and break the wheel. Yeah, sure. She goes crazy basically under the pressure of basically saying all this was for nothing. All this breaking the wheel stuff is for nothing because there's an unstoppable zombie army that basically is like the tides of winter, like the seasons. It just cannot be stopped. The rotation of the planets. We're dealing with bigger things than just one girl's dream.
Yeah.
And basically, she does a rally death thing, and she's basically like, "Hey, if we're going to see another morning's light, like we have to stop them right here. Come die with me."
Rage my soldiers.
Yes.
Scream my soldiers. Fight my
that
soldiers.
Guy. Oh my god. I'm so like hard for Attack on Titan right now.
Yeah.
So good.
I've been seeing Game of Thrones being compared with Attack on Titan in terms of storytelling, and that season 3 of Attack on Titan is the epic that season 8 of Game of Thrones should have been. I think.
It's a completely different
show. It's a completely different thing, but it's a great example of where Attack on Titan remembers what makes it special, even though a lot of the stuff is very much plot focused, of like just crazy things happening and whatnot.
Right. We're still in early, like you can tell with the way they're about to like blow things up with the overall conflict of Attack on Titan that we're still in the early seasons, so to speak. Like there's still a lot more stuff that we have yet to get into, given that we still haven't gotten to the freaking basement. What did he say? Take a page from break the wheels, brand the broken on a wheelchair. That's really silly, but that made me like kind of exhale in a sigh of humor. Yeah. Wait. What was saying? Something saying that
that Isayama is a
Game of Thrones fan, and he was not a fan of the way they handled the season 8's finale and ending and stuff like that. Jumping the Game of Thrones community is awesome. So much good community theories, original content, memes, and insiders, and funny videos. Is really good fandom, I have to say. I would have to agree as well. I have limited experience with the fandom overall, but I started the show. Like, this is just a little callback thing. I started the show when season 4 was about to premiere.
Yeah.
So I watched every episode from that point live, way back when, and it was special. It was really cool to be watching, in my opinion, the greatest season live with everyone, and having just dealt with the Red Wedding,
right, and not needing to wait,
and then it was just like, oh. There's some good people, some good times, good discussions, and lots of good theory crafting. There's a lot of cool ideas for Game of Thrones that didn't get explored, but could have been pretty awesome. Boars, thank you so much for the follow. Glad to have you here. I know this is off topic, but if you guys seen Nana, if you haven't, can y'all please watch? I don't know what Nana is, but I'll look into it.
I think I've seen the art for the main character. Yes, and a couple of the first episodes.
I believe he sneaks Game of Thrones characters into the manga. A couple of Titans look like Game of Thrones characters if you look closely.
Okay.
Oh, so he'll basically like have a random Titan running around that looks kind of like a Game of Thrones character?
So what Game of Thrones character is the penis Titan supposed to be?
Ramsay. Just a giant dick.
Yeah.
Have you read the Song of Ice and Fire books?
Yes.
Highly recommended, of course. It's no secret. For sure. Thank you, Chibi Spheres.
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad the Game of Thrones fandom sounds nice. I have bad experiences. Cough, cough, Ruby. Cough, cough. Yeah. Our Free Folk is the funniest subreddit of Game of Thrones. I laughed out loud every time I go in there. Yeah, there's some good subreddits, too. Yeah. All right, we're going to be wrapping things up here pretty quickly. But, hey, y'all... End result is Game of Thrones happened.
Yep.
We have to accept that. It wasn't
good
handled
and bad
well towards the end. Good and bad.
Because Game of Thrones did a lot of things that were absolutely amazing, and the fact that we got it is incredible.
And here's another thing that's really good here. For those of you all with the futurist kind of perspective, I live in like the future, basically. I try to live in the present to be happier, but the idea is that if you think about what Game of Thrones meant for television, is that now there are tons of copycats with the themes, the plot progression, the overall fantasy kind of stuff coming on here, and that have come and gone. Some of them have just come and they're already done, and some of them are about to finish up, where they realize that you can do good fantasy television. So guys, we have a lot of good things to look forward to.
We do.
Where people will realize, hopefully, the mistakes of the ending of Game of Thrones specifically, but where also it went right in the earlier parts here, and focus on getting good acting, good actors. I would say if they're adapting something, which is kind of a safer bet, focus on nailing the characters in the adaptations right, or the adaptations right, but also taking creative liberties. And you don't have to have Robb Stark be 14 years old.
Yeah,
you don't have to have Jon be 12 or 13.
I think Robb was 15, Jon was 14.
Yeah. You can have them be 18 looking ish or whatever. There's a lot of good stuff that can be taken from that. So I'm excited for the future of television in the live action sense, because Game of Thrones will inspire that next generation of TV stuff. But yeah. What's sad is I've read better fan fiction endings of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have Witcher, we have Amazon Lord of the Rings. Now, some of those might be bad. Like the Witcher one. Yeah, Wheel of Time. Oh my god.
Yep.
Oh. Of course we're going to be watching the Lord of the Rings show. Are you crazy?
Oh, yeah. What?
Like Jacob and I, that was our bread and butter.
Yeah, like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, that's we were nursed on that stuff.
Yeah, I was suckled on Luthien's teats at the stage. I read the Silmarillion before never mind. I was about I'll calm down. Oh man. Yeah. Oh, Lost gave us mysteries. Breaking Bad gave us asshole protagonists. Game of Thrones gave us mystical murder and nudity. Can't wait for the MHA equivalent that takes all this and gets it right. Okay. Will you watch the prequels? Maybe.
I mean, we'll probably watch it. Will we react to it? Another story.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cavill is too cute to be Geralt. You'd be surprised what you can do with makeup. And
I mean, they thought he was too skinny to be Superman.
And people thought... what's his name? This is my
Zachary Levi?
No, the Joker.
Oh, yeah.
People thought he was a bad idea for the Joker because he was too cute. Heath Ledger. Do you remember that, y'all?
Yeah.
People thought Heath Ledger would be a bad Joker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't judge on appearances. That's just a good motto in life in general. But don't judge on appearances.
Yep.
Judge on the actions, the work ethic, and all that stuff. So yeah. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us for this podcast. This has been just a joy to talk and be just
kind of get this off our chest.
Just kind of cast all this off, just being like, we're free. No more.
Yep.
No more just pain.
We declare our independence.
Yes, absolutely. Attack on Titan soon.
Yeah.
Very soon. Don't worry.
All right. Well,
for sure. So, y'all, thank you so much for watching this. If you're new to our Twitch discussions and everything like that, be sure to leave a follow so you stay up to date on all these things. We do all our streams at 3 p.m. Pacific time. We have a YouTube channel, Semblance of Sanity on YouTube. We do a lot of discussions on anime and stuff in general. We're doing a lot of really cool shows right now, like The Promised Neverland, and Attack on Titan, JoJo's. Check that stuff out. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., we're doing Berserk manga stuff, which we're headed towards the end here. Getting pretty crazy.
Yep. And then Thursday, 3 p.m.
we got a new thing coming with Jacob.
I'm going to be playing Dota 2.
Yeah.
I haven't played in a long time, so it'll be interesting to see how it's changed. But I'll be blowing off some steam and murdering people, hopefully.
Right. So join him in chat and stuff, and have some fun with the guy. He's pretty cool. So, but be nice. And then of course we've got me going into the DLC for The Witcher 3 on Friday. So hope to see you all there. Until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.
Oh, yeah.
Play with me, Dota 2. Hearts of Stone hype.
Yeah. Dota 2.
Since Jacob finished the book, we want that Kamina shirtless video. Oh my god.
Oh boy. Yeah, that would.
But see, what people really are probably excited about is just how much awesome there is coming in Battle Lines. Battle Lines sticks the ending.
Let me tell you, being some of the people in the domestic